Hi, I'm Ernie.
And I'm Ben.
And this is Budget Nerds.
What was all in your mind?
You are not alone.
And we are not alone once again. Ladies and gentlemen, we are thrilled to introduce you to Harland White. Harland?
Hello.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Budget Nerds.
Appreciate it.
Hey, good to have you on the show. Well, so folks that don't know you, Harland, you're on this incredible journey of paying off this debt, reducing your debt, and you're documenting it all on YouTube. And that's how we found you. And you're also a YNABer. And so we wanted to bring you on the show to nerd out about paying off debt, budgeting, and all that fun stuff in between. So good to have you.
Cool. No, definitely enjoy being here.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you, man. So if you want to find Harland D. White on YouTube, just search it up. And we'll have a link in the description and all that good stuff too. But I love what you're doing, Harland, because I feel like you're part of a growing community of people who just lay it all out there on YouTube. Like you literally go, among other things, you talk about lots of things. You talked about like Dogecoin. I saw.
Recently.
So like, among other things, you just like show yourself budgeting. You just take a screen sharing video of yourself going through your budget, and people find that really fascinating. And I think there's a lot of people doing that now, and it's really cool to see your journey that way.
Why don't we start off with just you telling us a little bit, about the journey, kind of where it started, the number you're trying to eliminate when it comes to debt, and the purpose of your channel.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So Harland, and my YouTube channel is Harland D. White, and last July I did start a YouTube channel, and the whole goal around my YouTube channel is to document my journey of eliminating almost $50,000 in debt. So really that started May of 2020. And so each week I kind of go through things that I'm learning throughout the week. So whether it be budgeting, I do the videos around where I show how I budget each paycheck, whether it be learning about Dogecoin these last couple of weeks. I talk about a video around my net worth and actually calculating that for the first time and how powerful that was. And so really it's just been a journey. I think that the YouTube communities kind of helped me stay accountable to paying off debt each and every single week. So that's one of the things that keeps me on track. So far, as of this last week, I've been able to reduce my debt by a little over $30,000. And so this is the first time where I'm just under 20,000 left to go.
Not in the last like you didn't do that in the last week, but you did that in the last
since last May I've been able to reduce my debt. So it's been really interesting.
That is so much, and like way less than a year. Like that's a big deal. That's huge.
Yeah.
I'm curious, have you always kind of nerded out with personal finance, or maybe give us a little glimpse of your life before you got dialed in here over the past 9 or so months?
Yeah, so I would say definitely not. Hence the $50,000 in debt. But I would say I've been somewhat interested. I think we were just talking. I first found YNAB back in 2011, and I think I was trying to join the community back then. So I've been aware of it, but it obviously wasn't something that I stuck to or anything like that. So I would say the actual like nerding out, sticking to the budget, it is relatively a recent thing. Once I decided to get out of debt, it's been like foundational to help me to stay on track and things like that.
Yeah. So you kind of like use YNAB off and on and other stuff too, I'm sure. But like, what was the moment? Like what inspired you to like just go crazy and like reduce your debt by 30,000? That's so in a year or even less.
Yeah, it's been kind of crazy. Like I would say, part of the journey has definitely been with my partner, significant other, and we kind of started the journey together before we got married. We've since separated, but I would say that the key catalyst for me was October of 2019 when my mother passed away of cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, that was a tough, very tough period. My best friend, and like it caused a lot of like self-reflection on like, you know, she lived in Florida and I lived in Illinois at that time. And like financial issues preventing us from seeing each other more often.
Wow,
so it's a combination between the, you know, the financial issues and then just not prioritizing it right to be able to see her more often. That really got me thinking about how much the mishandling of finances impacted things. And the thing that really got me was like, even that year, normally I would go see her every December, things like that. We had a conversation earlier in the year. She wanted me to come out in August, but things were tight. And so we decided, let's, you know, wait until December, like always. And, you know, obviously we didn't make it to December. So for me,
so sorry, Harlan.
Yeah. So for personally, that was a key catalyst to get me wanting to, you know, do better with the personal finances. And so basically from that point, that was the October timeframe. Still some time in between. That next year, my goal was, once I got a bonus from my corporate job, I planned to use that to kind of spark the debt-free journey. And then COVID happened last year and like some of that thing. So I held on to some of that cash for a little bit.
Yeah. I did the same thing too when I was paying off debt.
Yeah. So basically once I got started, I think it was made the decision, got my bonus. And at that point I started actually, the biggest thing for me was to actually look at how much debt that I actually had. And it was about $10,000 more than I had thought. And then, and then from that point, it was just a matter of trying to put together a plan and then start implementing on it. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I got started. I originally got started with the Dave Ramsey's debt snowball method. And so I started knocking out some of those smaller debts first. And that really got me motivated to continue with the journey in the beginning.
Yeah. Man, like that's such a hard, you know, thing you went through. But I think for a lot of people, there's like this moment. I've talked to a lot of people about paying off debt. And I think for a lot of people, there's this moment where they realize like, oh, this debt is really like stifling my freedom, you know, like you couldn't travel when you wanted to, you couldn't, you know, go see your mom and as much as you wanted to. And you like kind of came to that realization. I think a lot of people do. Tell us a little bit more about like that moment when you tallied up all your debt, because I think that's the hardest thing for a lot of people. Like I honestly, I think that's even more than like making a plan to pay it off. Like I think just facing it is one of the hardest steps, you know. what was that like?
It definitely is. It's definitely a weird experience that I try to tell people about. It's just like, I know that I have this lump of debt, but I have no idea. And it seems like if you don't actually face it, then it's not really there. It's kind of,
I totally know what you mean.
And so yeah, I mean, it was just a matter. It was kind of like I started pulled the credit report, started looking at like all the different things that were on the credit report, started looking at all the other places. I had some 401k loans that were outstanding, ended up getting some federal taxes that was outstanding, and just really just started adding up. I mean, it wasn't necessarily a great feeling at that point in time, because I mean, and you know, since I've been on this journey, I've seen other people and they have a lot more debt to pay off. But for me, even looking at the almost $50,000, I'm like, man, how am I going to pay this off? How long is it going to take? Because it felt like I was already living paycheck to paycheck. So I'm like, if I'm living paycheck to paycheck, then how am I ever going to find enough money to pay it off? So that's kind of, I mean, it wasn't a good feeling, but I think it was definitely a freeing feeling later down the road, because I actually knew what I was, you know, what the number was.
Yeah. And as you were getting these numbers, were you tracking them in like a spreadsheet or something, just listing them from smallest to biggest?
Yeah, I did. That's initially how I did. I pretty much, you know, wrote it out on paper and then eventually put it into the spreadsheet. And that's kind of how I track it now. I have a spreadsheet, and that kind of track off the debt spreadsheet. Plus it's also, and I have it on YNAB as well as
cool.
So that's.
And how long did it take you to knock out that first debt?
So The first one was actually pretty easy. So I actually started off with in May. The first debts that I knocked off were medical debts. There were about 5, and they were all very small, like under $600. But
Okay.
I started with those debts because I was able to use my HSA account, my health savings account.
Nice. Okay.
I found out that if you accumulated the debt when you had a health savings account, that you could use that to pay off the debt. And so I had money sitting there, so I ended up paying that off. Those like 5 small debts the first month. So that was pretty cool.
That's huge. Yeah. That must have felt amazing. Because I mean, you kind of, and I know like you said like things were tight, and like were you paying on those debts, or were they like did it give you back any cash flow, or was it just
it didn't there? So I was not paying them. Most of them were in collections.
Right.
That's a whole
especially the medical debt stuff. Like sometimes some of that you don't even know about.
Yeah, so especially the medical debt. Those are ones where it's like I wish they would have just took the money right then and there, because I wasn't opening the mail, and so that was one that So yes, that was the first test that I was able to knock out, and felt pretty good. Yeah.
And then like so you said, okay, you felt like you were paycheck to paycheck, and yet you've reduced your debt by 30,000. So like, what did you do? What was your plan? How did you get from there to where you are now? Man, that's amazing.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I do think about, because it's like, if I was able to do this, why couldn't I have done it previously? I think a portion of it is not the whole thing, but it's like me and my spouse wasn't able to get this on the same page with where the money should go.
Yeah, totally.
Since being separated, it's more so I have a complete picture of like, how much money I have and what needs to be done with it. So for me, it's really, I guess the real key has been just prioritizing within my budget to pay off debt. So I set a goal back in the July timeframe to at least pay off $1,500 in debt each month. And so I've been able to exceed that. I'm pretty sure every month since I've started the debt-free journey. For very early on, I was able to apply a portion of the bonus that I still had left over towards my debt-free journey. So that definitely helped. And I relocated from Illinois to Florida to spend time with my dad down here. And in doing so, I sold some gym equipment and some golf clubs for about $2,000 as well.
Now, I'm curious to hear a little bit more about that, because I don't know you very well, but from the videos I've watched, it sounds like you're very into powerlifting.
That was tough.
and you're into golfing. I mean, you golfed in college, right?
I did, yeah.
And you got rid of your clubs and your weightlifting stuff.
And also you moved to Florida, where it's like Golf City, right?
Yeah, so that definitely has been tough. I'm super into powerlifting, so I do miss. I had a whole powerlifting rack and about 600 pounds of weights, and like definitely miss having that whole setup, the comfort of my own home. So that was pretty tough. I'm sure I made someone really happy, because it was tough. It was tough to get that equipment. Yeah,
top of the line stuff.
Yeah, it was great shape, So that was pretty tough. I mean, I guess the good thing down here, gyms are still open, so I'm able to go to the gym still. And then the golf clubs, that was another change that kind of helped me to put more money towards paying off debt, because even last year, up until when I moved down here, I was playing golf at least once or twice a week. Somewhat expensive. And so since I've been down here, I haven't played any golf, but I also haven't really missed it yet. So hopefully, so hopefully I should be able to play a little bit more this year, but not playing it definitely put some more money in my pocket as well.
So looking back, you would say, it was worth it selling that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. It was worth it. Yep. Yeah, it was kind of weird, because early on I had sold my driver, and that's like my favorite club, and so then I was using this old driver, and it just wasn't the same, but it was worth it. Yeah.
Do you think when you're done with this journey, you'll buy it back? Or...
I'm definitely gonna get some new golf clubs when I finish all this. So
that's good.
One of the top things. Yep.
Nice. Yeah, and that's what I say to people, like about selling stuff. Is like, think about like the cash flow you'll have after you get this debt out of your life, and then you could buy whatever you want, you know, maybe not whatever you want,
Yeah.
but you can get that stuff back, you know, but it's just like a temporary time sometimes, you know.
And by that point, you probably were already, you had a ton of momentum, you know, selling something else probably just increased that feeling of like, wow, my plan's working and I'm really doing this.
Yeah, well, that was probably, it was early on. So it kind of, so I made a decision there because to move all of my stuff down there was going to cost about $2,000, or I can save it, or I could sell it and make $2,000.
Got it.
So it was really like, it was early on in that decision. So I felt like, you know, I kind of earned, you know, $4,000. I don't know, but it did help me and put it in perspective. Is like, I am starting this debt-free journey. You know, how best should I use this money? And that's what I ended up coming up with. So
that's good. That's good. Yeah, make some sacrifices. Yeah, I guess it would have been pretty darn hard to move that down to Florida and all that, anyways.
yeah. So I mean, that was the cost, and like, so I pretty much only took what I could put in my car, and I got rid of everything else pretty much, or put it in storage.
Yeah.
So yeah. So
I guess that's pretty natural. You're like, oh, moving anyway. It's time to start like shedding some stuff.
Yeah. So it was really the only thing that I figured, the only thing I really wanted was my powerlifting thing, and so I'm like, so it worked out. Yeah.
Maybe you can get that again one day too. Let's see.
Yeah. We'll see.
That's cool, man. One thing we wanted to ask you, I think I always want to ask people this, because motivation is one of the toughest things when you're on a long journey like you are on. Like, what's kept you in the game? Like, how do you stay motivated?
I'd say that the biggest thing is the YouTube channel, but it's also I think it's also the people closest to me as well, because they're all aware that I'm on this debt-free journey, and so I get asked questions about it all the time and things like that. And so I guess want to lead by example, and it's good. So that's a big motivator as well, just to show people that it is possible to get out of debt. I also try to explain the benefits of budgeting and how it's actually made me feel better. It's more freeing to actually know where my money is going, and knowing that I actually have this money sitting in the bank before I spend it, and things like that. So it's a combination. Definitely the YouTube keeps me accountable, but also like the people closest to me that I have those conversations with as well. So.
Ever want to throw in the towel?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, ever had like a moment where you're like, I'm done with this? I mean, once you start that YouTube channel, you got to do it, right?
Right. I would say definitely not. I think
cool.
There was moments where I was a little bit frustrated just because I didn't have, because in the beginning it was like a really fast start because I had this extra money. And then like it kind of slowed down and things like that. So that's when his like patience really needed to kick in. And so I'm very happy. I was looking at it last weekend. I really think I should be able to be out of debt this year. And so that's a big motivator for me. Yeah.
Yay. That's so exciting, man. I can't wait to follow your story and see it happen. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, let's nerd out a little bit about budgeting, because I knew the minute this was the moment I knew you needed to be on Budget Nerds. Watching one of your videos, you were talking about budgeting, and you described it as the most exciting topic in the world. And I'm like, right there, Budget Nerd.
Say that.
Yeah.
But then you talked about how it's really helped you on this debt-free journey. And so, let's just dig into that a little bit.
Yeah. So I definitely think it is probably one of the key things for my debt-free journey. And let's see, it's really something I spend time in it, like not every day, but as far as my why now, I do look at it every day, but I'd say there's 1 or 2 days where I'd really take a deep look into my budget just to make sure that I'm staying on track. And the way that I've explained it, and I haven't quite figured out how to do everything in YNAB at this point in time, but I do have a tracker that I use as a template in my Google Sheets. And I kind of lay out like all the different things that I know this needs to come out of my budget. And then as soon as I get paid, I use that template and I put it into the YNAB tool. And I found for me that's been very successful. Let's see what else. But the biggest thing I do like about the YNAB YNAB is the ability to move around funds and that flexibility. So, one of the YNAB rules. And so I think for me, and that's the key element that I try to explain to everyone as well, because in the past, I think one of the biggest reasons why I would quit budgeting was that I would go over on a particular category and then I'm like, oh, well, I'm already over the budget anyway.
I know that feeling, man.
Yeah,
where you're just like, well, I already messed it up, so might as well just go crazy.
So the whole thing went out the window. Whereas in YNAB, that flexibility, just move around things. If I overspend in one category, I found that very helpful as well. I think what else in this new year, last year I didn't use reports very much. And so this new year I've reorganized I did a new budget. I did a fresh start. I think I was watching you guys' video on that into the new year. And I set up my categories a little bit differently so I could start looking at some reports a little bit more. So I did that for the first time last month.
That's cool.
But in general, I'd say like budgeting, knowing where all my money is going has been like tremendous help for me this year on that debt-free journey. Because pretty much the debt, how much I need to pay towards debt comes off the top. And then I try to figure out what else I need to pay within those within those pay periods. So
yeah, that rule, like moving money you talked about, rule 3 is my favorite rule. Roll with the punches, because you're so right. Like it just keeps you in the game, like because I've tried other methods before, and it was always like I'd look at the end of the month and be like, well, I overspent and I screwed up, and you just like make yourself feel bad, But that's what I love about YNAB is like, no, you actually have a way to keep yourself accountable and deal with it in the moment. And then instead of beating yourself up, you fixed it and you can move on.
Right.
So it's
like zero guilt. And I was trying to tell my friend about it because he's budgeting in a spreadsheet and but I was like, it's so much easier in this tool. I haven't convinced him yet.
Yeah, we all got that phrase.
Yeah, it's like you just need to.
It's hard to make that jump if you have like your beloved spreadsheet. And I mean, if it's working for him, like that's great. But
that's the thing. My spreadsheet never worked for me, so it was easy for me to just bail and be like, I'm going to try YNAB.
Yeah, I don't think it's quite working. We talked about it, and it does. It makes him feel good though.
With the bus right now.
I know he's gonna definitely see this. So
all right, man, you got to do it.
He knows it's true.
So you touched on this a little bit, but when did you discover YNAB? You said it was like off and on for a while. And I know, like in some of your videos, you felt like you were using it wrong for a while, or whatever that means exactly. So tell me about that.
Oh yeah. So I discovered a long time ago. I also discovered Dave Ramsey a long time ago. So I knew better before I got into this debt, but didn't got into it anyway. Things happen. And so it's been off and on because like I got a pretty good deal for like the annual. I signed up for the annual YNAB like a while ago, so my annual is pretty good compared to what it is now.
Oh, you got the full price there, yeah.
Old price. I was like, oh man, I'm glad that I'm grandfathered in there. But I guess it just wasn't. It had nothing to do with the YNAB tool in itself. It was just like the combination of trying to balance just budgeting together and things like that. It just never worked out. So this year or last year when I actually started getting on the debt-free journey, I'm like, this is it. This is a tool that I'm going to use and I'm going to, make it work. And I've just been consistent. So I just also some of the things I talked about in the videos that, give it 3 months, and just keep going at it. And, it'll eventually you'll kind of get it. One of the things I was talking about that I was doing wrong in the beginning was that I wasn't following rule number 1 and giving every dollar a job. So the early months, I basically had that money still left over from the bonus. I didn't immediately put it towards debt. So I had a whole bunch of money to be budgeted and pretty much. Yeah. So pretty much what I was doing.
I mean, I've talked about it before. I cannot leave money into me budgeted because I will spend it on whatever.
Yes. I was like, oh, I have my budget. But then when I would go over on a particular category, I'll just pull it from the to be budgeted category. So something clicked. I think it was the end of August or September last year. It's like, oh no, I need to budget everything and to kind of prevent that. So that was one of the key things that I was doing wrong. I believe I wasn't quite doing the rule number one, giving every dollar job. So
yeah, it's funny because like it's not like what you're doing was terrible. It's just like not optimized. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because it's something about like if you give that money a job, when you do decide to move it for something else, you really see what you're giving up, you know, instead of this like amorphous blob of extra money, you know. So
yeah, and I think when I did make that change, I was spending a lot more in the eating out category as well. It was because I just
that's
like
the one, man. That's
man,
the one that kills everybody.
that was really killing me. So
well, I know on a lot of those videos I've watched, your grocery category was always 0.
yeah,
And it's like, how does he do it?
yeah. So yeah, that is the uniqueness. So being down here, I'm staying with my dad. So I give him money and he takes care of all of that. So the grocery categories typically does not exceed $50 from me.
Okay.
And, most of the time I find myself stealing from that category to pay for eating out. So yeah, that is the unique thing that I know for me is that I can minimize that
nice.
that particular category. Yep.
Yeah, that's good. I guess we were going to ask about first impressions of YNAB, but I guess you kind of touched on that a little bit. It was kind of off and on at first. I think that's really common for a lot of people. You know, it kind of takes a few tries.
Yeah, it took me 2 tries.
Yeah, and I would definitely say that as well. I don't think it was, and I would tell anyone, I don't think it was necessarily intuitive at first. It does take some playing around.
It's a different way of budgeting.
It's a different way of thinking. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, I even remember that from, first early times trying to play around with it. And then I really had to reacquaint myself with it last year, where now it's, I'm not an expert in all the different functions and, features and things like that. But as far as what I need, what I've used it for, I'm really comfortable. So
it's awesome, man. Yeah.
You cut out the home gym, you cut out the golf clubs. Sounds like you treat yourself with eating out a little bit. Is there anything else in the budget that you make sure that you do prioritize, kind of as a, I don't know, something fun to look forward to as you're eliminating all this debt?
Ooh, fun.
You're like,
or you're just hardcore. I'm just
fun as
getting rid of it all right now.
So I guess the only other thing, so this year I had 3 financial goals. One was to become debt free. The other one was to increase my giving. So that's something that the way that I'm tackling that is I started off at 1% of my gross in January, and then I'm going to increase by 1% each month until I get to 10% in October. So that's what I'm prioritizing that each month out of my budget this year, which is different from last year. And then the last one, I'm prioritizing my 401k. I bumped it up to 6% to take advantage of my company match. Outside of that, I prioritize, I guess the fun piece would be either putting money aside to go see my 2 stepkids up in Illinois, or to have them come down to see me. So I'm setting aside money for that in my budget. Outside of that, I don't think so. Pretty much eating out is my it's my fun that I get personally. So
cool. Well, that's super inspiring that you are prioritizing giving and trying to increase that as you're trying to eliminate debt.
Yeah, it's cool.
I think that's counterintuitive, but like I said, super inspiring. So kudos to you.
Yeah, I was looking at the other day. I was trying to forecast out to the future. I was like, man, it's gonna get tight, but we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, there's ebbs and flows. Like sometimes you're paying off tons of debt, and then sometimes it slows down a little while, and sometimes you go crazy again. So it's like that for everybody, I think. But it's good. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about, Harlan, that we didn't touch on?
No, I think that's about it. I mean, I definitely just want to encourage people that, getting out of debt is possible, and encourage everyone to, live below your means. It brings a sense of peace that I definitely didn't feel previously.
Yeah. Well,
I guess maybe quickly, I'll touch on like the the stress, I guess, of debt prior to getting out of debt.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
So like one of the things I look back to, and I was living paycheck to paycheck, but there was like and I was working very hard with little to show for it. And I think, you know, part of that was not like really paying attention with where my money was going, or, you know, prioritizing, you know, savings and different things like that. And so there was several years where I was working like 3 different jobs. I was working my main corporate job. I'd work server a few nights a week, and I would do newspapers 7 days a week. And I had more money coming in, and that whole lifestyle creep was real. And so it's like, I never was able to get ahead. And so it's kind of interesting now that I've pared a lot of that stuff back, I'm able to still get ahead. And it's mainly because I was able to really look at where all my money is going and prioritize it appropriately. And as a result, you know, I'm able to, I guess, make progress financially and have more peace versus spending all this time working and stressed out and always waiting for the next paycheck to come to you know, pay this next debt payment. So I don't know. I just want to share that in terms of like that piece that you get by actually facing the debt and putting together a plan, I guess.
Yeah, it's huge. So. It's huge. Well said. Love that.
Yeah.
I think it's a good place to end it there. It's a good word to end on. So Absolutely. If you guys want to, I mean, are you going to be, like, is it every time you budget, you sit down to budget, you record it, or is it just every once in a while? Like what's
I do it at least once a month, if not twice, for both checks. I do at least one check, if not both checks each month. So.
Cool. So if you guys want to follow Harlan, just search up Harland D. White or check the link in the description and you can follow along. I'm hoping you make it this year out of debt. That's an awesome goal.
Appreciate it, guys.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Harlan.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. Happy budgeting.
Thanks.
See ya.